In this session, we will follow the previous session, which we read this article, and we will continue it. But what about the purpose of design? We have two kind of design for corpus, unannotated corpus and annotated corpus. Here we read some features about the unannotated and annotated corpus, and we will be familiar with their features. Unannotated corpus like TDIL corpus, which represent a simple raw state of plain text without additional linguistic or non-linguistic information. Here in the non-unannotated corpus, we are faced with a raw state of plain text. We don't have any additional linguistic or non-linguistic information. It is of considerable use in language study, but utility of corpus is considerably increased by annotation. This is the feature of and definition of unannotated corpus, which is plain text, and it contains of simple raw state, and we don't have any additional linguistic and non-linguistic information. But about the annotated corpus, like British National Corpus, which contains tags and codes inserted from outside by designers to record some extra information, analytical marks, parts of speech marks, grammatical category information, etc. into text. Please pay attention to the annotated corpus because it is very important, because most of our corpus are annotated. The annotated corpus, like British National Corpus, which contains tags and codes inserted from outside by designers to record some extra information. This information can be analytical marks, parts of speech marks, grammatical category information, and others information into the text. In contrast to unannotated corpus, annotated corpus is more suitable for providing relevant information useful in various tasks for language technology, including morphological processing, sentence parsing, information retrieval, word sense disambiguation, matching translation, and etc. When we annotate our corpus, it be very useful and we can use its information. You should know the unannotated corpus and annotated corpus and their differences. Another matter is the nature of application. You should know all of this, description of this title for a final exam in brief. A nature of application, which is we have some kind of corpus, which is translation corpora, aligned corpus, parallel corpus, reference corpus, comparable corpus, opportunistic corpus, and another type of corpus which we just refer them. Nature of application. But what about translation corpus? This title is important and I highlight it for you. Okay. Translation corpora. You should know all of the features of this corpus. Translation corpora generally consist of original texts of source language and their translations taken from target language. It is the definition of translation corpora, which is consists of original text of source language and their translation taken from target language. These corpora usually keep meaning and function of words and phrases constant across languages, and as a consequence offer an ideal basis for comparing realization of particular meaning in two different languages under identical condition. I repeat it again, which translation corpora consists of original texts of source language and their translations taken from target language. These corpora usually keep meaning and function of words and phrases constant across languages, and as a consequence offer an ideal basis for comparing realization of particular meaning in two different languages under identical condition. Moreover, they make it possible to discover all cross-linguistic variants, like alternative rendering of particular meaning and concepts. Such translation corpora provide more fruitful resources both for cross-linguistic data analysis and rule formulation necessary for translation. It is the feature of translation corpora which its feature is clear because it contains text of source language and their translation as its name denotes. Another type of corpus is aligned corpus, like the Canadian Hansard corpus, which is a kind of bilingual corpus. Here we are dealing with a bilingual corpus where texts in one language and their translations into other language are aligned, sentence by sentence, phrase by phrase, or even word by word. It is the features of aligned corpus. Aligned corpus, like the Canadian Hansard corpus, which is a kind of bilingual corpus, where texts in one language and their translation into other language are aligned, sentence by sentence, phrase by phrase, and even word by word. Another kind of corpus which is very similar to aligned corpus is parallel corpus. Parallel corpus, like Cummins' German-English corpus, which contains texts as and translations in each of the languages involved, allowing double-checking translation equivalence. Here in aligned corpus, we are dealing with bilingual corpus, but here we have more than one languages, maybe 3, maybe 4, and more. Text in one language and their translations, here we have more than one translation, into another are aligned, sentence by sentence, phrase by phrase, even word by word. Sometimes reciprocate parallel corpora are designed, where corpora containing authentic text and translations in each of the languages are involved. Maybe their features be hard for you to remember them, but you should practice. By practice, you can internalize this type of corpus in your mind. Another kind of corpus which is very important is reference corpus, like Bank of English. Is made to supply comprehensive information about a language, because it is a reference corpus, therefore it is a comprehensive corpus. Reference corpus, which is like Bank of English, which is made to supply comprehensive information about a language. It is large enough to represent all relevant variants of language and characteristics vocabulary, so that it can be used for writing grammars, dictionaries, thesaurus, and other materials. It is composed on the basis of relevant parameters agreed upon by linguistic community. It includes spoken and written, formal and informal, language representing various social and situational registers, It is used as a benchmark for lexicon, for performance of generic tools, and language technology applications. With growing influence of internal criteria, reference corpus is used to measure the values of special corpus. Reference corpus is very important. You should know all of its features, its characteristics, in how reference corpus, like the Bank of English, which is a comprehensive, which contains a comprehensive information about the language. It is large enough to represent all relevant varieties of language and characteristics, vocabulary, and can be used for writing grammars or dictionaries, thesaurus, and other materials. It is composed on the basis of relevant parameters agreed upon by a linguistic community. It includes spoken and written, formal and informal language representing various and social and situational registers. It is used as a benchmark for lexicon, for performance of generic tools, and language technology applications. With growing influence of internal criteria, reference corpus is used to measure the variance of special corpus. Another kind of corpus is comparable corpus. Comparable corpus, like corpus of the European Union, is a collection of similar texts in more than one language or variety. Please pay attention to this point. Comparable corpus, as its name denotes, like the corpus of European Union, is contain a collection of similar texts in more than one language or variety. Here we have the similar text in more than one language or its varieties. It contains texts in different languages where texts are not same in content, genre, or register. It contains texts in different languages where texts are not same in content, genre, and register. These are used for comparison of different languages. If it follows same composition patterns, but there is no agreement on the nature of similarity, as there are few examples of comparable corpora. It is indispensable for comparison in different languages and in generation of bilingual and multilingual lexicon and dictionaries. Okay. Another type of corpus is opportunistic corpus. An opportunistic corpus stands for inexpensive collection of electronic text that can be obtained, converted, and used free or at a very modest price, but it is often unfinished and incomplete. An opportunistic corpus stands for inexpensive collection of electronic text that can be obtained, converted, and used free or at a very modest price, but is often unfinished and incomplete. Therefore, users are left to fill in blank spots for themselves. Their place is in situation where size and corpus access do not pose a problem. The opportunistic corpus is a virtual corpus in the sense that selection of an actual corpus from opportunistic corpus is up to the needs of a particular project. Monitor corpus, generally considered as the opportunistic corpus. Here, the opportunistic corpus has very features and characteristics which you should know them. But there are some other types of specifications such as closed corpus, synchronic corpus, historical corpus, dialect corpus, idiolect corpus, sociolect corpus, etc. We have different types of corpus. Therefore, the scheme of classification presented here is not absolute and final. It is open for the recategorizations as well as for sub-classification according to different parameters. Okay, we will be familiar with the nature of application. You should know these types of corpus and their feature, their example. You should know them for the final exam. But what about the text corpus generation? There are various issues related with corpus design, development, and management. The issues of corpus development and processing may vary depending on the type of corpus and purpose of use. Issues related to speech corpus development differ from issues related to text corpus development. Developing a speech corpus involves issues like purpose of use, selection of informants, choice of setting, manner of data sampling, manner of data collection, size of corpus, problem of transcription, type of data encoding, management of data files, editing of input data, processing of text, analysis of text, and etc. I repeat it again. Please pay attention to this point. There are various issues related with corpus design, development, and management. The issues corpus development and processing may vary depending on type of corpus and purpose of use. Issues related to speech corpus development differ from issues related to text corpus development. Developing a speech corpus involves issues like purpose of use, selection of informants, choice of setting, manner of data sampling, manner of data collection, size of corpus, problem of transcription, type of data encoding, management of data files, editing of input data, processing of text, and analysis of text. But developing a written text corpus involves issues like size of corpus. Here in this paragraph, we refer to those features which are necessary for a speech corpus, and here we will read those features which are necessary for written text corpus. Here, the size of corpus, text representation, question of nativity, determinations of target users, selection of time span, selection of document, collection of text documents like book, newspapers, magazine, method of data sampling, which sorting of collected material according to one's need, manner of data input, random, regular, selective, corpus sanitation. By sanitation we mean editing, error correction, omission of foreign word, quotation, dialect, etc. Corpus file management, problem of copyright, and other features. Here in these two paragraphs we read the feature of a speech corpus and written corpus. But what about the size of corpus? This part are important too, and I highlight them for you. Size of corpus. We will be familiar with such points. How big a corpus will be. This implies that size is an important issue in corpus generation. It is concerned with the total number of words, tokens, and different words types to be taken into a corpus. How big a corpus will be? This implies that size is an important issue in corpus generation. It is concerned with total number of words taken and different words types to be taken into a corpus. It also involves the decision of how many categories we like keep in the corpus, how many samples of text we need put into each category, and how many words we shall keep in each sample. Also, the question of size affects validity and reliability of corpus. It is stressed that any corpus, however big, is nothing more than a minuscule sample of all speech and writing variety produced by the users of the language. In early days of corpus generation, when computer technology for procuring language data was not much advanced, it was considered that a corpus containing 1 million words is large enough to represent a language or variety. But by the middle of the 1980s, computer technology went through a vast change with unprecedented growth of its storage, processing, and accessing ability that have been instrumental in changing the concept regarding the size of corpus. Now, it is believed that the bigger the size of the corpus, the more it is faithful in representing language under consideration. How? Now, it is believed that the bigger the size of corpus, the more it is faithful in representing the language under consideration. With advanced computer technology, we can generate corpus of very large size containing hundreds of millions of words. For instance, the Bank of English, British National Corpus, the Cobbled Corpus, the Longman or Lancaster Corpus, the International Corpus of English, which they are very large in size. And the American National Corpus are indeed very large in size, each one containing more than 100 million words. Another matter is text representation. In the long run, however, the question of size becomes irrelevant in the context of representation of the text samples. Large corpus does not necessarily represent a language or a variety in a better way than a small corpus which is properly balanced with text of all language varieties. Any large collection of text is not necessarily a corpus until it is formed with proper text representation for any kind of generalization. We can call a corpus truly representative only when the finding obtained from its analysis can be generalized to language as a whole or to a specific part of it. Therefore, rather than focusing on quantity or amount of data in corpus, it is always better to emphasize on the quality of the data or text samples. That means that should be proportionality represented from all possible domains of language used within a corpus. In essence, the overall corpus size and balance need to be set against the diversity of source text for achieving proper text representation. Within a text category, the greater is the number of individual text samples, the greater is the reliability of analysis of linguistic variables of a corpus. Therefore, the greater is the number of individual text samples, the greater is the reliability of analysis of linguistic variables of a corpus. For instance, the broad and the lob corpus, as well as the survey of English usage, are considered to be good representative of English use in America and England because these are carefully designed with systematic representation of modern English text. A simple comparison of this with the B and C, a corpus of 500 million words, will show that the BNC is not only larger with regard to the amount of text, but also far more diversified in structure and in text representation. This easily settle empirically the issues of size and representation of text samples in a corpus. Another matter is question of nativity. The question is, whose text, speech and writing should be included in a corpus? The question is, whose text, speech and writing should be included in a corpus? The text of the native users or that of the non-native users. The general argument is that if it is a monitor corpus, then text produced by the native users should get priority over the text produced by the non-native users. Because the main aim of a monitor corpus is to represent a language or a variety, which can be considered as an ideal form for all kinds of works in linguistics and language technology. Okay, I will repeat it again because it is important. The question is, whose text, we mean speech or writing, should be included in a corpus? The text of the native users or that of the non-native users? The general argument is that if it is a monitor corpus, then text produced by the native users should get priority over the text produced by non-native users. Therefore, in the monitor corpus, the text of native users are in priority than the non-native users, because the main aim of a monitor corpus is to represent the language or the variety which can be considered as an ideal form for all kinds of works in linguistic and language technology. Therefore, based on the purpose of each corpus, you can use and choose the information. It has been observed that the citation of made-up examples and the listing of ungrammatical sentences in a monitor corpus have fairly significant effect on the results of linguistic analysis of the corpus. In that case, we find a large number of mention rather than actual use of words and phrases within a corpus. If our main objective for building corpus is to know the naturally occurring language in order to see what does occur and what does not, then permitting made-up examples of sentences and phrases will make a corpus less acceptable for proposed purpose. One way of avoiding this and many other potential problems which may be found in a special corpus is to apply a criterion for inclusion of text in a corpus, that the text should not be too technical in nature. In case of special corpus, text produced by non-native users may be considered. In the case of a special corpus, text produced by non-native users may be considered, since the aim of a special corpus is to highlight the peculiarities typical to non-native users, because in special corpus we are deal with we want to find some features of non-native users. We should use and we highlight the text which produced by non-native user. Here, the questions of representation of text in a corpus is not related with the language as a whole, but with the language used by a particular class of people who have learned and use language as their second language. In case of a special corpus, text produced by non-native user may be considered, since the aim of a special corpus is to highlight the peculiarities typical to the non-native users. Here, the question of representation of text in a corpus is not related with the language as a whole, but with the language used by a particular class of people who have learned and use language as their second language, which they are non-native speakers and informants. The basic idea is to have a corpus that includes data from which we can gather information about how a language is commonly used in various mainstream activities of a linguistic interaction. When we try to produce references that will provide faithful guidance to word use, spelling variation, syntactic construction, meaning usages, etc., most likely we would like to acquire texts produced by the native users. In principle, the text written and spoken by the native user will be far more directive, appropriate, and representative for enhancing the ability of language understanding and use for the non-native users. Perhaps this goes rightly along with the desire of a non-native user who will learning a second language aim to achieving the efficiency of a native language user. The basic idea is to have a corpus that includes data from which we can gather information about how a language is commonly used in various mainstream activities of linguistic interaction. Here we can see the goal and aim of this corpus, and our data should be aligned with this purpose. When we try to produce references that will provide faithful guidance to word use, spelling variation, syntactic construction, meaning usages, etc., most likely we would like to acquire text produced by the native users. In principle, the text written and spoken by the native users will be far more directive, appropriate, and representative for enhancing the ability of language understanding and use for the non-native users. Perhaps this goes rightly along with the desire of non-native users who, while learning a second language, aim to achieving the efficiency of a native language user. However, the question of nativity becomes complicated and case-sensitive when we find that the same language is used by two different speech communities separated by geographical or political distance. The question of nativity becomes complicated and case-sensitive when we find that the same language is used by two different speech communities separated by geographical or political distance, like British English and American English. In this case, we need to treat on a different track. It is better to recognize and generate a separate corpus with separate lexical items and a syntactic construction that are common in or typical of the native speakers, especially those which differ from one another, like words and sentences typical to British English versus words and sentences typical to American English. We also need to get into the things that are correct by the rules of grammar and usage of American English and perfectly understandable, but just not right in rules of grammar and usage in the British English. This usually betrays the most proficient native speaker of American English the opportunity for enlisting their languages and corpus of British English. In this context, let us consider about the Indian English when Indian people are exposed to lots of linguistic materials that show the marks of being non-Indian English, as Indians are often exposed to main texts of British English and American English. People who want to describe, recognize, understand and generate Indian English will definitely go for the texts produced by native speakers of Indian English, which will highlight the linguistic traits typical to Indian English and thus will defy the all-pervading influence of the British English or the American English over the Indian English. Okay. Another matter is identification of target users. All of these titles are important, and I highlight them, this title too, because this is important and you should know their features. There are no fixed target users for a general corpus. In whole, there are no fixed target users for a general corpus. Anybody and everybody can use it for any kind of linguistic or non-linguistic purpose. Therefore, we don't have a fixed target user for general corpus, and anybody and everybody can use it for any kind of linguistic or non-linguistic purpose. For a specialist corpus, however, the question of target user is important. Since each investigator or researcher has specific requirements, a corpus has to be designed accordingly. For instance, a person who is working on developing tools for machine translation will require a parallel corpus rather than a general corpus. Similarly, a person who is working on the comparative studies between two or more languages will require a comparable corpus rather than a monitored corpus. Here, in the following table, you can see the list, which is a sum of the type of corpus users and their needs with regard to the type of corpus. Here you can see the target users and all kind of corpus. You should know this table. Type of corpus users and their needs with regard to the type of corpus. For the general written and speech corpus, our target user is descriptive linguists. For general written speech corpus, our target user is descriptive linguist. For general monitor parallel spoken aligned corpus, our target generally can be NLP and LT people. They are the abbreviation of some words which are in the body of text. For the speech corpus and spoken corpus, our user is speech technology people. For general monitor specialist reference opportunistic purpose, our target user is lexicographers and terminologists. The target user of speech, spoken, annotated, specialized corpus is dialect researchers. The target users of general written speech monitor corpus is sociolinguistics. Specialized speech written corpus is psycholinguistics. The corpus for the historian are literary diachronic corpus because they are concerned with the history. The diachronic corpus and literary are important for them and are useful for them. Social scientists are concerned with general speech written special corpus. Comparative linguists are dealt with bilingual, multilingual, parallel, and comparable corpus. MT specialists are concerned with bilingual, multilingual, parallel, comparable, and annotated corpus. Information retrieval specialists are concerned with the general, monitor, and annotated corpus. Tagging, processing, and parsing specialists are concerned with annotated, monitored, written, spoken, and general corpus. Core grammar designer are deal with comparable, bilingual, and general corpus. Word sense disambiguation worker are deal with annotated, monitored, written, spoken, general corpus. Teachers and students deal with learner, monitor, and general corpus. And linguists are concerned with all type of corpus. According to their purpose of investigation, they can use the different corpus. Okay, until the selection of time spent, we continue this matter and this discussion in the session, in the next sessions. In this session we read some features of corpus. As I told you, we had unannotated corpus and annotated corpus. When you want to learn this discussion, you will read all of them line by line, and you should practice more and more to learn them. You can send me your summarization as a voice, and it is not necessary to send them just as a written form. You can send them as a voice, and your summarization should be very brief, and just you should point at the important matters, not all of the points. Okay, for the purpose of design, we introduced unannotated corpus and annotated corpus, and we read their features. For the different kind of corpus, we refer to the translation corpora, aligned corpus, parallel corpus, reference corpus, comparable corpus, opportunistic corpus, and we have another type of corpus which are clause corpus, synchronic corpus, historical corpus, dialect corpus, ideolect corpus, sociolect corpus, and other type of corpus which we used them according to our purpose of generating a corpus. Here we told you some features, we give you some information about the generation of speech corpus development and written corpus development. About the size of corpus, we read some matters, and we see some changes in the size of corpus by the computer technology. We introduce some example of big corpus which have over the hundreds of million words. And text representation, another was the question of nativity, which we used them according to the purpose of our corpus generating. Here we introduce the target users of different corpus. Please read them and summarize them and send me your questions, your ambiguity through the WhatsApp, and I try to clear it for you by giving an example and summarize it and send it for me by as a voice or as a written form, which is easy for you. You can use it. Thanks.